Hello, my name is Shantu Roy. I lead the AI, ML, and quantum computing global practices in AWS professional services. Today, I'd like to talk to you about innovation and what that means to your business. In addition, share some examples with customer engagements that we've been doing for the last couple of years. And my hope is that we can give you some additional perspective and a view on how to innovate for your business and inspire you to get started down this journey. So in today's session, we'll talk more about the fundamentals of innovation, and we'll talk about a plan of attack in addition to talk about specific launching points down this journey, and finishing up with an example of a few of the customer engagements that we've done this year, the last couple of years, and also some of the lessons learned. So let me start by saying that there's really nothing formulaic about innovation. Even though I use the word formula, it's more of an understanding that the alignment of business outcomes and tools have to exist. You might have the best and the most innovative tools available to you, but without a good sense of what your business needs and what your customer needs are, and without even a measurable and identified business outcome, uh, it's something that becomes and ends up being more of a project versus an actual innovation experience. So the discussion around innovation has to start with the desired business outcome. Examples of these would be is I would like to recommend relevant products to customers as they buy and browse solutions, for example, and so that they don't end up buying parts of a solution. For example, providing a technician with recommendations on potential issues while diagnosing a problem in the field, and reducing the trial and error and resulting in faster diagnosis or fix. Another example would be is we'd like to predict, for example, potential areas of increased shortages during changing weather conditions. So we'd be better prepared to respond to shortages due to extreme weather. Now that you've been able to answer some of those questions, what you'll end up with is a North Star that'll give you the ability to work backwards from your North Star into how do we innovate starting from where you are today. So the process of working backwards, you end up defining on how to measure the impact of your customers and your business, the family of tools, the resources, and also having an understanding of what it takes to marry the tools and the motion of your business to start down this path of innovation. As the journey is charted, what you'll find out is that you can individualize this process by the specific items from your business as your business processes and the data that you have that'll make it very unique to your business. The data and the process act as a fuel to your innovation engine. In truth, they're not really any off-the-shelf sort of solutions, but what you'll see is recommendation paths for you to consider. Whether you're starting from a recommended path or from a clean sheet of paper, the part of customization process are experiments. So one of the items that you'll realize as you embark down this journey is that you'll be constantly faced with the decision points along the way. And to make those decisions, if you use an experimental perspective to them, it'll allow you to have measured outcomes that can define which direction that you want to take. Experiments are a best way to validate and invalidate potential approaches without any long-term burden or fallout of an incorrect direction. And I guess it's important to remember that as long as you're experimenting and measuring the output of each experiment, you'll realize that there's no such thing as bad decisions, just validated or invalid hypotheses to your experiments. Lastly, innovation is about a journey and not a destination. It is a windy path of experiments, learning from their positive and negative outcomes, and implementing those learnings and doing it continually. Once you've realized the business outcome, it is a great time to celebrate, but also a time to look back and look at items that you experienced along the way. Consider which ones could have been done better, faster, and maybe more efficiently. And that introspection and retrospective would lead into an iterative journey of its own. So one last point on the fundamentals. Always remember that your customers demand that you innovate. It is done with customized and tailored approach, and what you'll end up with is a delighted customer. So in our experience, what we've seen is that the journey of innovation, you have to start somewhere. It's easy to end up picking the hardest or the widest or the deepest problems to go after. But that might not be really the ideal place to start. The key is really twofold. One, identify the business objectives that you think that can be done in short order. And two, come to a consensus on how you're going to measure that objective. This will help you identify the path to embark on. So the paths that are we generically see with our customers are in a generic way to classify them would be an automation path, an enrichment path, and a differentiation path. So an automation path is where the focus is to use intelligent systems to automate away less valuable work, freeing up the resources to be able to focus on more valuable work. So an example of this would be is we worked with a wafer manufacturer to be able to automate the detection of bad wafers early in the production cycle, which allows for lessen wastage and also speeds up the quality and increases the quality of wafers that are produced. The enrichment path is to use an intelligent system in a more to add more features for existing services that are out there. So adding more functionality, more value to your customers with the products that you have made available to them already. So an example of this is where we helped a customer revamp their recommendation engine so they were able to recommend better and more aligned products to their customers, allowing for a better fit between the customer and the service that they're offering. So the last major classification, if you will, is differentiation. So this is where you focus on the efforts to create and differentiated products and new products that you take to market and to your customers. An example of this is where we helped a financial services customer with automating their claims litigation process. So diving a bit deeper into this section. So in this section, I'd like to kind of dive into examples that we've done with customers that fit into this automation classification I mentioned earlier. And what we'll talk about is the problems, the technical approaches, and the outcomes of them. So let's start with Cathay Pacific. So Cathay Pacific is a major airline company based in Asia. They have routes that span the globe and partner with other major carriers. The challenge that Cathay was facing was their website is currently heavily visited for travel booking, and they were experiencing both legitimate and fraudulent traffic to the website. So to increase and better their customers' experience as well as trust, they wanted a way to detect the additional and have additional validation steps for that suspect traffic that comes to their website. And they wanted to make sure to not implement any additional validations or steps that would take away or add cumbersome experience to all their customers. They wanted to be able to be very selective and provide the potential visitors to their website and prompt them with these steps, additional steps to make sure that it's not fraudulent traffic. So we started looking at their existing data from their website and did some initial data exploration to find out the story that they were telling us. This informed us on potential approaches that we would consider. After experimenting with a couple of different approaches, we ended up building a classifier that would allow classification of actors in two buckets of abusive and legitimate. To further hone the classification, we took a novel NLP approach that used pre-trained word embeddings to increase the accuracy of the classification. We also wanted to make sure that these models that we introduced into production for Cathay Pacific use Amazon SageMaker endpoints and would have the ability to be tunable so that the business could make a decision between trade-offs of usability, speed, and customer experience. So these models were able to detect a higher than 75% of abuse while being impacted with less than a percent of impacting less than a percent of the legitimate customers. So in summary, Cathay Pacific was able to put an innovative step into their customer buying experience that would retain and enhance the trust with their customers, but not add additional steps that would take away from the customer experience. This frees up analyst cycles from going through an already executed transaction to determine abusive actors, but more of a proactive and intelligent system. In addition, this allows them to keep refining and tuning the system to also meet their business needs. So the next example, a customer example that I would like to share with you is with the Toyota Research Institute. So Toyota Research Institute, or TRI, is a division of Toyota, a global automotive manufacturer. TRI's role, as stated in their website, is the exploration of the future of intelligent amplification and their functions to apply to research output to Toyota. So in this specific engagement, we are working with the TRI researchers to create ML models that would take their vast amounts of data that they currently have and accurately label this data. So this data is going to be used with Toyota's self-driving trucks. As you can imagine, these autonomous systems not only need a large volume of data, but they also have very accurate data to train the internal systems with. The challenge was to be able to accurately label this data, but more importantly, identify and access and quantify the labeling errors so that the resultant data is as pure and accurate as possible. We took a multi-step approach to solve this problem with TRI, and we built a system that can not only address their current data, but also be able to handle all the new incoming data that comes in. We built them a pipeline of models that leveraged automated systems using different additional services in Amazon SageMaker to prepare the images, to label the images and report on the findings, so that every step from data acquisition all the way to storage is refined. In summary, the resulting output is the automation of these pipeline models that address the life cycle of images, and more importantly, it allowed the researchers to focus on the research tasks and not get encumbered by the technical implementations. In addition, the reporting function allowed them to consistently and constantly monitor and access the data and the labeling efforts. So I'd like to transition over to the enrichment phase. In the last section, we talked about a couple examples of how our customers are innovating by introducing intelligent systems into their operations, and not only taking out the extra, giving them back extra cycles, but also how it is positively affecting their experience with their customers. In this section, I'd like to talk into a couple examples of work that we've done with customers to help enhance and enrich their existing products and services in an innovative manner. So I'd like to start the example with Chesterfield County Public Schools. So Chesterfield County Public Schools is a public school system of Chesterfield County in Virginia. Chesterfield County Public Schools is educating more than 58,000 students in about 62 different schools. The county has 38 elementary schools, so that's grades K through 5, 12 middle schools, grades 8 through 8, or 6 through 8, and 11 high schools, grades 9 through 12, and a technical center in addition to that. So as with many other school systems, Chesterfield County's public school system is battling with the case of identifying high-risk students that the school system can intervene and help with. So over the years, the school system has figured out that if a student misses more than 10% of the school days, they are at a high risk of deviating away from a successful educational path. The school system has had existing processes in place that they look at past history to identify students, but as with many things, the desire here is to catch and identify these high-risk students as early as possible in their educational process. So the school system wanted to be able to have a system that they could that could help in predicting these high-risk students so that they could proactively act upon them. And so we started with exploring the historical data that the school system had over to get a sense of what factors come into play when deciding to build a predictive model. And as part of this exploration, we provided visual reports of existing data to the school system and to make sure that it aligned with the way the school system was actually looking at the problem of identifying high-risk students. So we used XGBoost classifiers to identify high-risk students using Amazon SageMaker and tested for accuracy of the predictions. We use these models not only to identify a set of students that are high risk for the upcoming school year, but also enable the public school system to integrate this into their operations that would help them take a longer term view on high risk students. So the next example I'd like to share with you on enrichment is 21st Century Fox. So 21st Century Fox is a multinational mass media corporation. With 21st Century Fox came to us looking for a more accelerated and innovative way that they could predict the types of viewership on their TV shows, which in turn would inform them on how to sell ad spots during those TV shows themselves. So with the right advertisers, tying it to the right demographic of the viewership. Fox already had a pretty complex system in place, and that had been working, but they wanted to take a more of an innovative approach and that would yield them more an accurate forecast as well as doing it in a faster manner. So we again started with exploring the data to better understand the factors that are in place for making the current decisions, also to understand their business systems and overall how the business functioned in this space. This helped us define with Fox what would be the items that we would define on measuring and how we would go about measuring the performance of the system and overall impact of the business. So on the technical front, we created a novel approach with Fox on Amazon SageMaker, utilizing word embeddings, XG-boosted models and hyperparameter optimization. This forecast helped extend Fox's ability to take their currently 2-week incremental outlook and forecast into about a year's worth, and also increased the accuracy of upwards of 86% on the viewership that were being classed as the demographic. The approach was a major boost and enabler to Fox to be able to increase their TV spot sales and revenue, and while being able to make sure that the ads presented were relevant to the viewers for their TV shows. In addition, during this process, we also uncovered undersold TV spot opportunities, so additionally provide value to Fox and their customers. So in summary, you can see this step was not only made to an existing, taking an existing system and making it better, but adding multiple areas of other value, such as the viewership experience. And with continual adjustment and retrainings of the model and adaptability to future TV programs and TV shows. So in the following section, I want to talk about the differentiation. So in this, I will share some examples with customers that embarked on the journey to innovate and build approaches and systems that would take a leap forward, creating a fundamentally differentiating products and approaches in their industry. I'll start by sharing the story of AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca is a multinational biopharmaceutical firm with headquarters in the United States, United Kingdom, and Sweden. And we worked with the R&D team based in Cambridge, UK. The premise of the engagement was that kidney injury can be identified by analyzing glomerulus for damage. A glomerulus is a network of blood vessels and is a core part of the basic filtration unit of the kidney. There's a connection between the glomerulus and its filtration rate, not only to the health and overall kidney function, but also has clinical significance when suspecting kidney disease. The engagement was to come up with an innovative way to detect the glomerulus in a kidney cross-section by allocating and scoring the condition of the glomeruli, and then classifying it into a predefined injury classification. So given the research nature the human effort from the pathologist that goes into the analysis of the cross sections, the resulting documentation, as well as a lot of embedded tribal knowledge. There was a lot of unknowns during this project. So we charted a course of working with many experiments along the way, from data exploration, data labeling, and then finding the right model to fit the problem, that we kept increasing precision and intended outcome of reducing the time spent by the pathologist on analysis, but also speeding up getting scientific insights out of this. So we ended up using a deep neural network object detection approach known as a single-shot multi-box detector, and also applied a novel image classification technique to come up with the solution. So in summary, we were able to bring together methodologies and knowledge over the years of pathological research, data, and approaches into a solution that gave a measurable advantage to our research team, and then focusing on the future of curing kidney disease. And on this next example, I'd like to talk to you about Mercuria Energy. So Mercuria Energy is a privately held Swiss international commodity firm that actively has a wide spectrum of that actively trades in a wide spectrum of global markets, which include petroleum products, natural gas, power, coal, carbon emissions, base metals, and renewables and agricultural products. Mercuria came to us looking to leverage machine learning to improve their commercial decision-making process within the North American entity. The project we worked on with Mercuria was around heating and cooling degree days forecast probabilities, and also establishing a time series data pipeline for them. We evaluated multiple algorithms and multiple ML techniques, including deep AR and Profit, to handle seasonality and missing data points, and of course assessing the forecast accuracy against the baseline models. This led to a solution that was fully automated ML pipeline with RDS data extraction, integrating SageMaker machine learning and Amazon SageMaker machine learning, and visualization for decision support. So this improved Mercuria's ability to not only assess the accuracy and distribution to the US weather models, but we also created a very usable framework for them that allowed Mercuria to keep leveraging in the other efforts that they see. So in conclusion, I hope the takeaways from this presentation are as follows. Innovation is not really a choice, but a demand from your customers. There are multiple ways to get started, and going down this journey requires a good integration between business and the technologies that are available, and then working backwards to come up and chart a plan with experiments along the way. And while the journey might be a winding path, I think the good experimental hygiene and in purpose tying with purposeful measurement will keep gaining incremental value back to the business, which builds up to the grand finale. I deeply thank you for your attention and time today. Please don't forget to fill out the survey at the end of the session. Thank you.